Hello, and welcome to my interview. I see that you're already seated, so let's begin.
Hello, I'm John Adams, the second President of the United States of America.
Could you tell me a bit about yourself?
Of course I can. I was born on October 30th in the year 1735, and I was born into a family of, albeit comfortable, not very wealthy farmers. My father was a deacon at the local congregational church of my town, and as a young boy, I loved to play outside with my friends, and I'm going to be honest, I often skipped school to play with said friends.
I see. So then tell me more about your education.
Well, I grew up and attended multiple different prep schools throughout my childhood, in which I was miles ahead of my peers. And I finally decided to enter Harvard at the good old age of 16. And in the year 1755, I graduated at the age of 20. I went on to teach in a Latin school just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I did this in order to save up enough money to begin studying law further. Once I had saved up enough, I went on to study law in the office of James Putnam, who was a very prominent lawyer at the time.
So, what sort of jobs did you do prior to your presidency?
Well, I started my career as a lawyer in Boston in the year 1758, and if I'm going to be honest, my career started off relatively rocky. I only had one client in my first year and didn't win a case for almost 3 years afterwards. But after I won my first case, my career started to grow in success.
Did anything ever come of your success?
Of course, after I began becoming well known, I was hired to court a woman named Abigail Smith, who was the daughter of a congregational minister in Weymouth. We eventually fell in love and married in 1764. And over the course of the next 8 years, we had 5 children. However, one unfortunately died at birth. By 1770, my reputation had grown to the point where I was a lawyer with likely the highest number of cases in Boston.
And what came of this popularity?
Likely because of this, I was chosen to defend the British soldiers who were charged in the Boston Massacre of 1770. Because of my excellent defense, none of the accused soldiers were sent to jail. Throughout my time as a lawyer, I moved from Boston to Quincy, going house to house, and around this time, I also began to write quite a lot, publishing a number of popular essays in the Boston newspapers on a multitude of political issues. This became a very frequent thing for me.
Wasn't there some drama going on between Britain and America around that time? Can you tell me about that?
Sure thing. In 1765, Britain began to tax America on all of its imported papers, and was getting heavily protested by the British, by the colonists. I was rather hesitant to get involved, fearing for my family and for my respect as a legal practitioner. I also simply distrusted most of the radical leaders at the time, including my cousin, Samuel Adams. However, due to the large amount of pressure to act, I began writing anonymous newspapers and helped by creating numerous pieces of propaganda. As Britain continued to make an attempt to tax the colonies, I began to fully believe in what the radical leaders had been saying, and soon became an open non-supporter of Britain's ministerial policy. In 1766, the Stamp Act was repealed.
Could you elaborate on the events that followed the Stamp Act?
Of course. For starters, in 1774, I was sent to Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress, as one of Massachusetts' 4 delegates. This Congress was created for the purpose of boycotting British goods. I was re-elected in 1775 for the Second Continental Congress, which was pulled together just a few days after the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Following this, the Continental Army was created in June 1775, to which I nominated George Washington of Virginia to be its leader. While this was happening, I soon emerged as the leader of the part of Congress that pushed towards American independence from Britain.
Does this have anything to do with the signing of the Declaration of Independence?
Actually, it does. In June 1776, Congress appointed me, along with a few others, including Thomas Jefferson, to prepare for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Later on, August 2nd, the Declaration of Independence would be signed.
That's amazing. Did anything else happen during your time working for the Congress?
Yes, of course more happened. After roughly 4 years in Congress in 1778, I was sent to France to help secure the help of the French. Afterward, I was sent to The Hague to obtain a much-needed loan into open commerce. In 1781, I was part of a commission of the American diplomats, along with a few other prominent leaders at the time, that negotiated the Treaty of Paris, which put an end to the War of Independence.
What happened after America's independence was secured?
Well, by the end of the Revolution, I had become a rather well-known patriot who had served his country very well. I returned to America from London in 1778, after being gone for almost 10 years. I mostly came back to secure a spot in the new national government that had been created by the Constitution that was ratified a year earlier. I knew quite well that George Washington was going to win the election and become the first president, due to his great efforts into the independence of America. After the election, I became the vice president, having the second highest number of votes behind George Washington. By the late 1792, the two main political parties had been created, with one being the Federalists, which supported a strong central government, and the other being Democratic Republicans, which supported a limited government. I had chosen to become a Federalist, believing in a strong government.
So, when did you become president?
That's a good question. After George Washington was re-elected in 1792, he led for another 4 years until the election of 1796. I was chosen, along with Thomas Pinckney, to represent the Federalists. Thomas Jefferson was chosen, along with Aaron Burr, to represent the Democratic Republicans. The person with the highest number of votes would become the president, and the person with the second highest number of votes would become the vice president. I went on to win by a 3-vote margin ahead of Thomas Jefferson, meaning I became the president and Thomas Jefferson became my vice president.
So then, could you tell me who was in your cabinet?
Of course I can. Obviously, my vice president was Thomas Jefferson. My Secretary of State was Timothy Pickering. My Secretary of Treasury was Oliver Wolcott Jr. My Secretary of War was James McHenry. My Attorney General was Charles Lee, and my Secretary of the Navy was Benjamin Stoddard.
Thank you, I see. So, what sort of foreign policy decisions did you make during your presidency?
Well, there were the XYZ affairs.
Who was involved in this?
Well, obviously me, but also Charles Pinckney, John Marshall, and Elbridge Gerry.
So, what happened?
I sent these 3 people to France to negotiate our diplomatic relationship.
When did this happen?
This all began on October 18th, 1797.
And where did this all go down?
These affairs happened between America and France.
Why did this need to happen? I thought France was an ally.
Well, in 1796, France broke all diplomatic ties with America after nearly 20 years of alliance, due to France undergoing their own War of Independence with Britain.
So how did you go about negotiating with France?
Well, once Pinckney, Marshall, and Gerry arrived in France, they were met with open hostility from the French. They attempted to meet with the French Minister of Foreign Relations, only to be met with a strong refusal. 4 French agents, whom I later dubbed W, X, Y, and Z, attacked my agents on multiple occasions. They demanded an apology and multiple loans, along with almost $25,000 in bribes in order to speak to the French Minister of Foreign Relations. They also implied the war would begin if we denied these circumstances. Of course, Pinckney and Marshall denied these circumstances and left to America, while Gerry chose to wait in France a little longer to see if the circumstances could change. Once they broke the news to me, I decided that I would like to continue to try for peace with France, fearing war. Despite this, I still urged America to increase its defenses. Many people insist that I call for war. However, I simply could not allow this. Once I informed the Congress on the whole story and how France refused our offering of peace, they chose to send the newly created Navy and fought an unofficial naval war with France for almost 2 years.
Wow, seems like a very difficult situation. What else did you do as president after these events?
Well, on June 18th, 1798, following the tension between the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, the Congress passed the first of 4 acts called the Alien and Sedition Acts. These acts changed the residency requirement from 5 to 14 years before citizenship can be granted. It also authorized the president to deport any alien he deemed dangerous. along with allowing me to deport any aliens of an enemy country and remove their rights during times of war. These acts also affected Americans themselves by making it illegal to oppose and publish criticism of the government.
Did these acts not seem unreasonable at the time?
Well, with me being a Federalist and what had happened between America and France, I had something it necessary to pass these laws.
All right then. What about the end of your presidency?
Well, in the election of 1800, I faced a great difficulty in re-electing. As the election happened just 2 years after the hostilities between France and America, as well as the passing of Alien Sedation Act, the public was still quite torn on how to view me as a president. Federalists and Democratic Republicans still had quite a bit of tension between them. All of this together made the election a very close and difficult battle, which surprisingly came out to be a tie between me and Thomas Jefferson. However, things still didn't look too good for me, as my first term was extremely rocky and quite frankly could be seen as a failure. Congress decided that Thomas Jefferson was more qualified to run as president, and in turn chose him over me.
I see, thank you. So it came to a tie between you and Thomas Jefferson. What did you do after losing that second election?
Well, to be frank, I was satisfied with my term as president and very proud of what I had accomplished. The way I saw it, my poor term was simply caused because of the fact that America was simply in its stages of infancy, and no one really knew how to run America properly. After the election, I chose to retire and live out my life for the next 26 years with my wife and kids like I always really wanted. I wrote constantly and never really left the comfort of my own home. And in 1812, I began writing to Thomas Jefferson, who had recently retired himself, and became quite good friends. I enjoyed my life until we both died 14 years later, on July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the American independence, a date which both me and Jefferson wanted to see desperately. I died at about 6 o'clock in the evening, with my last words being, "Thomas Jefferson survives." I was 90 years old. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going back to my grave to enjoy my slumber.